Hey y'all, it's Bear, and today I'm here to give you some personalized book recommendations. It's thunderstorming right now. Sorry if you can hear that. I just don't have another time I can film right now, so ambiance room, I guess. So I got the idea for this recommendations video after I got the TikTok trend on my For You page of like, they're a 4, but they have really good style. He's a 7, but he hates animals. She's a 9, but she never knows where she wants to go to eat, that sort of thing. And I thought it would be fun to do some book recommendations like that. So I went to Instagram stories and I posted, it's a 10, but give me something you're looking for in a book. And I got some fun responses, so these are the answers for you. It's a 10, but it's something that I will keep thinking about weeks later. The Obsession by Jesse Q. Susanto. This book has not left my mind since I read it. I talked about it in a wrap-up and I think in a couple of other videos throughout the year. But basically, this is pitched as a stalker story. It is pitched as like boy meets girl, boy stalks girl, girl gets revenge. And that's literally what the thing on the front says. But we don't talk about the drug ring or the murder or the video cameras or the anything in this book. The blurb does not do this book justice, and I have not stopped thinking about it as a book, but also how like the marketing for this failed this book miserably. Descriptions of the book were not intriguing enough to make a lot of people pick this up, and I think that is really disappointing. So I haven't been able to stop thinking about the story aspect of the book and all the twists and the turns and the Riverdale CW TV show-ness of it all, but also I haven't been able to stop thinking about how much bigger this book could have been had it been marketed correctly. Next, it's a 10, but it makes you constantly question reality. Earthlings by Saga Murata. I read this like a year or two ago. It's probably still the most confusing book I've ever read, and I don't mean confusing in the way that you can't understand what's happening. It's just like you're questioning, is it really happening? Trigger warnings for sexual assault, pedophilia, incest, cannibalism, mental health. Like, if you can think of a trigger, it's probably in this book. This book follows a girl who at a young age falls in love with her cousin, and she's convinced that they're both aliens. And one day, their alien family will come back to save them from Earth. And this little hedgehog is like a stuffed toy that she's convinced is also an alien. She marries a man for the sake of convenience, and then she convinces him that he's an alien, and then she gets back with her cousin, and there's like cannibalism, and it's just batshit off the wall. Reading it, I was like, what the fuck is going on? The sexual assault and like grooming of a minor in here is also very disturbing, because instead of her viewing what is happening to her from her teacher as sexual assault, she has an out-of-body experience and she looks down and sees herself getting sexually assaulted, and instead of like understanding really what's happening, she's like, I have a new superpower now. Nope. I loved it in the worst way possible. It's a 10, but I had to stay up all night reading it once I started. Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I read this for a vlog series that I'm reading 50 books from all across America. This book, I made the conscious decision to stay up until 6 in the morning and read it. It is the only book in recent memory that I have chosen to lose a night of sleep to keep reading. Is it possession? Is it schizophrenia? We don't know. Why are the family and this preacher making this girl's possession exorcism into a reality television show? Is my sister possessed? Does she need help? What's going on? It's creepy. It's kind of gross. It's a good time. I really enjoyed it. But like I said, I did make the conscious decision to not sleep in favor of reading this book. I sat down with myself after I like filmed a clip for the vlog, and I said, do I really need to sleep? Like, do I actually need to sleep? And the answer was like, yes, I do need to sleep, but I'm gonna keep reading this book. It's a 10, but you're questioning how the main character survived. That could be applicable to a lot of books on my shelf, but for some weird reason, I just kept really being drawn to The Fisherman by John Langan. So this one follows two men who bond over the loss of their families, right? They're both widowers. And in doing so, they like start to go fishing. And one day, one of the men finds out about this like really great fishing spot. So they decide to go. But whenever they go, they are talking to some of the local people about it, like these people who work in this restaurant that they go to. And the restaurant employees start telling them this story, this like big dark myth about the place they're going to, about this entity called Dare Fisher, who like whenever the town was first being settled was like possessing people. Like they would die and then their bodies would fill up with water and they would become animated. It's gross. This book is gross. But the final showdown at the end of the book, honestly, I was not expecting anyone to make it out of this book. I don't think anyone really should have made it out of this book. I think everyone should have died. In a realistic, non-literary situation, I don't see a way that you can make it out of this alive. It's like Pet Sematary meets the Bible. Don't know how that works, but that's what it is. So the next one I know is going to be controversial because it's a 10, but it has a bad ending. And for me, Gideon the Ninth, I love the book. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. Really enjoyed the book. The whole time I read it, did not like the ending. I thought the ending felt almost like a little cheap, and it made me not want to read the sequels. Love everything up until like those last 3 pages. Not gonna spoil the ending for you. It's like necromancers in space, also lesbians, also swords. Really good time. Everyone has talked about Gideon the Ninth. I don't have to tell you what Gideon the Ninth is about, but I personally thought the ending felt a little flat, and it did not measure up to what the rest of the story was for me. I felt like it was kind of a cop-out. Probably controversial and some people might get mad, but I did not like the ending of Gideon the Ninth. Okay, now we have one, and it's a 10, but your favorite character was killed. Personally, I don't mind my favorite characters getting killed off because it gets like a strong reaction out of me, but you might know how much I love this series called the Teddy's Saga. It's not completed yet. There's only the first 2 books out. It's going to be a trilogy. Book 1, I had a favorite character. If you watch my review, I'm pretty sure I said who my favorite character was. Daniel Kraus killed that character in book 2 very early on, and I was very upset about it. Teddy's Saga is like sentient teddy bears who wake up in a dump. They decide they're going to try and go back to the store that they came from. They want to know this thing called the forever sleep, which is like whenever you find a kid to love you, they like give you a hug and then you're not sentient anymore. You can finally rest peacefully. My favorite character died very early on in book 2 and I was very, very upset. I cried a little bit, honestly. Okay, next, it's a 10, but you hate the romance. Usually I'm pretty indifferent about romances, but I was not a fan of the romance in Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. Enjoyed the book. Enjoyed all of the, like, nostalgic vibes. I like the angsty 20-somethings. I like the cosmic horror plot, too. It's not something that I would consider, like, my favorite genre, but I mean, I have, like, 2 or 3 recommendations on this list that are cosmic horror, so I understood where the romance came from 100%. However, it just wasn't my favorite. I don't think it worked in this specific scenario. I would read a spin-off. I wish that this book was a series and we just followed these people going on all kinds of mystery-solving adventures a la Scooby-Doo, and then I think the romance could have been developed a little bit more, but for the page count that we got, I found that the romance fell a little flat for me. Meddling Kids is like Scooby-Doo for the disenfranchised, freshly out of college person. They discovered that the mystery that they solved whenever they were kids is actually not solved. It wasn't just a man in a mask. It's like an eldritch creature. The romance in this just didn't do anything for me. I wasn't rooting for it or actively hating it. And for me, I can't stand feeling indifferent about something in a book. That's my thing. I don't want to feel indifferent about it. I want to have strong feelings about it. And for me personally, the romance just didn't evoke any strong feelings in me. It's a 10, but you had to finish it when you had to go to work. This one is very specific. Into the Drowning Deep by Muriel Grant almost made me late for work. I wanted to call out of work so I could finish this book, and it's a big boy. But this is also the first book that I bought myself when I got to Orlando. I read it twice in like 4 years. So kind of, I'm not overdue for a reread of it, but I'm gonna reread it soon. Killer Mermaids, exploration of the Mariana Trench, slight like revenge plot. Basically, ship went out to the Mariana Trench to film a mockumentary about mermaids, but they were all killed by actual killer mermaids. This is the family and co-workers and crew of the people who died on the original voyage to figure out what actually happened. Was it a hoax or did their family and friends actually get killed? They're also all scientists and big game hunters and, you know, mythologists and stuff like that. So it's really interesting science-wise. There was a Barnes & Noble right beside my workplace in Florida. And I went in to get a drink. I had this book in my bag and I was like, you know what? I'll finish it at lunch, right? Could not wait. I got my coffee and I sat down outside of the Barnes & Noble and read like the last 70 pages, I think, and then ran to work because I was almost late for work because I stopped to read this book. It's a 10, but it's super fucked up. The Least of My Scars by Stephen Graham Jones. Talked about this on a wrap-up earlier this year. Don't know if I've talked about it since then. Basically, in this book, we follow the perspective of a serial killer. So our protagonist murdered a woman in a very gross way that involved, like, killing her dog and putting it in her stomach and then making her, like, give birth to the dog. It was gross. It was gross. So basically this like big boss dude has taken him, he's given him an apartment, he provides some food and everything. He provides some people to kill. So he can get the killing out of his system, but he's also only killing people that the man wants him to kill. I'm not going to spoil this book, but how do I talk about this book and how gross it is and how fucked up it is without spoiling it? We find out through part of the book that he actually has a girl in his room, like a child that he keeps like tied down to the bed. There's a scene where he cuts off a woman's nipple and eats it, and it goes into detail about like the milk glands and the ducts and everything. It's so gross. Only Stephen Graham Jones can make me read a book about a man cutting off a woman's nipple, making her give fake birth to a dog. I don't know. It's a 10, but it's about sisters. First thing that came to my head 100% was Angel Fall by Susan E. Disclosing this, I have not read these books since way before I started BookTube. I do not know if they hold up. I need to reread them, but take my recommendations for anything that I have read prior to starting my channel with a grain of salt. Angel Fall is a post-apocalyptic Christian science fiction. It's not like Christian, but it follows like the Christian apocalypse, end times, you know, the end of days. It's like surviving in this world where these like monsters and angels are fighting, and either side is trying to like kill off humans and take hostages and experiment, and it's a really good time. We follow our main character Penryn, who falls in love with an angel who has been exiled. Basically, they cut off his wings. She also has a mother and a younger sister. The younger sister has been experimented on and is feral, I guess would be a good way to describe it. And whenever I think about like sibling relationships, Angel Fall is always one of the first ones that come to mind. And I think in the first book specifically, because the plot of the first book is Penryn traveling to, I think, San Francisco to save her sister who has been kidnapped by the angels. It's a trilogy. It was kind of popular on BookTube for a minute. Really enjoyed it. Need to reread it. Okay, here we go. It's a 10, but it's a straight romance. Don't read a lot of straight romances. I read a lot of books with romances in them as subplots. I've talked about that before. I've read 2 straightforward heterosexual romances this year. One was the Bromance Book Club. Might end up in my favorite books of the year, but the one I haven't talked about on my channel is one I actually forgot to include in my February wrap-up, The X-Hex by Aaron Sterling. I had a lot of fun with this, actually. I thought it was a good time. The romance was cute. It's like a second chance witch romance novel. And the love interest is like a descendant of the founder of the town. His family owns the town. He comes back into town for this Founders Day celebration, sort of. And he realizes that his ex is still there. And his ex put a curse on him after they had their little fling and broke it off, that he would always have shit luck. So now that he's back in the town, the curse is active and things are just constantly going wrong. I wouldn't say that this is too spicy. I fucking hate the word spicy in reference to books, but if we're giving it like a spice rating, I would give it like a 3 out of 10. It's pretty tame compared to some stuff that I've read, but it is a straight romance novel that I enjoyed, so technically it counts, and it is a straight romance novel that I would also recommend. The last one, it's a 10, but it's weird and vintage. Harvest Home by Thomas Tryon. This book was published in 1973, so technically it counts as vintage. I'm not clear on what the definition of vintage books is. I've read that it's anything that's like more than 20 years old, which means that I'm vintage. As a person, I am a vintage person. Anyway, Harvest Home by Thomas Tryon. Think like Children of the Corn but it's the whole town instead of the children. Basically, we follow this family who moves to this small town in Connecticut, this rural farm town, and they think it's just going to be great. They think they're going to start their lives all over. But they slowly start to realize that things in the town are not what they appear. These people are not necessarily nice people. There's some culty things going on. There are also these celebrations that keep happening, and every time there's like a celebration for the harvest, something weird happens. There's a girl who is like chosen to pick people to participate in the big festivals. People keep going missing. People keep turning up dead. It's weird, and it took me a while to get there, but when I got there, I was in. I've also mentioned that this book has the credit of being the one adaptation that has scared my father. I read it for my Patreon book club a couple months ago. We read the book and watched the movie. I really enjoyed it. I don't remember having many complaints about it. I was expecting a religious tie-in, but not like a polytheistic tie-in, I guess is a good way to word it. But it's not a Christian cult. It's not what you're thinking of, like religious extremists, I promise. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by liking, subscribing, sharing, etc., as well as answering the comment question of the day. Comment question of the day: I want you to describe your most recent read in the format of this video. My most recent read was The Merciless Four: Last Rites by Daniel Vega, and I would say it's a 7, but the ending just goes off the rails. If you don't have time, you don't have the spoons, you don't have an answer, you don't want to answer, let me know you made it all the way until the end by leaving me an emoji, preferably a yellow heart or a smiley face emoticon. All my social media links will be linked downstairs if you're interested. Also, you can consider supporting me on Patreon. Alright, I hope you have a wonderful whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time with another video. Thank you for watching. Okay, cool. Bye. Peace signs. I forgot the peace signs. Oh my god. I need a nap. It's hot. I considered wearing a hoodie to film today. Can you tell that this is a phone? The last 3 minutes of all of my raw footage is just me like staring and doing this. I don't think you realize how stupid I truly look unless you watch these like little thumbnail clips.